Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the garage for another edition of Andy the Gabby Cabby live and alive. I hope you have all had a fantastic day. Me, I'm knackered. Reason I'm knackered is I had a little trip uptown into London to the Royal Courts of Justice, to be precise, to support my mate Noel Willcox. And here's the thumbnail here for this live stream. Me and Noel outside the Royal Courts of Justice. Obviously, I wasn't the only one there. One thing I was pleased at today was the fact I got to meet Howard Cox as well. He was up there in support of Noel also. There's me and Howard there outside the court. So it's very good to meet him. And that's the thing with Noel. He did have and does have a lot of support over this whole matter to do with TfL. And there's the old Royal Courts of Justice sign there. You know, one thing I was very struck at by the place, you know, whenever you see it on the telly, it always looks grandiose and massive, doesn't it? Like it's some huge, great building. And the outside of it, to be honest, seemed a bit underwhelming to me. You know, so you can see it there. It's kind of flatter than it appears on the TV. But when you actually walk in the place, I mean, it's such a beautiful building inside. I unfortunately didn't get any footage because I was told that if you get your camera out in there, they will jump all over you, which is obviously no good whatsoever. Anyway, what happened? We went to the courtroom. Court 88 actually, which is a bit of a walk down the back, and listened to the proceedings. And unfortunately, kind of expected this, to be honest, it didn't end well on this occasion for Noel. The actual judge struck the case out, and it was effectively found on a technicality that, you know, it couldn't progress. That's how they dealt with it. Now, the disgusting thing is, it's been not once, but twice where Noel has attended proceedings, and it's pretty bloody obvious the signs are unlawful. And yet, where his company racked up over £11,000 worth of charges, and he's been told no, TfL are still chasing him for them. And then there's a further couple of grand's worth of charges to think about as well. Meanwhile, even though they're fully aware the signs are unlawful, they still go about chasing motorists for payment and running the scheme as if nothing happened. Now, there's a couple of interviews I want to play you with Noel. Before I do, one of them was with GB News, and I was very amused. This is a still of GB News, and look in the background, talk about free advertising, and I was standing there like a brass fart. No, not my best side for sure, but what I want to do is play you that, and it'll give you a little bit of overview as to what went on.
So Noel, tell us about your reaction to the judgment today.
Well, my reaction to the judgment today is that my evidence was not heard. And at the moment, I need to reanalyse, see where I go with this. So obviously, I had the adjudicator's decision back in 2021, October 2021, where he was not satisfied that the low emission zone signs were lawful. I've looked deeper into that, into the ULEZ signs and the dual signage, and I'm also convinced that these signs are not compliant with the legislation. And what I'm finding very frustrating at the moment is that I'm not getting my evidence heard in the courts. And as of today, that this is a private law claim because it affects me. But the argument that there was today was, in essence, that if the declaration is granted today, that it would financially bankrupt Transport for London. And that's pretty much the essence of how it went today. And the judge was not willing to allow my evidence to be heard in a trial. And I think it's really important that in the judicial system that the evidence is heard so that a judge can determine whether, once and for all, whether or not these signs are unlawful.
What's your next step?
My next step is I need to go back to the drawing board, analyse where we're at. I kind of suspected today that this was going to go. Once I saw that information submitted to the court, that this was going to affect millions of people and it could potentially bankrupt Transport for London and they were going to have to suspend the low emission zone. It was at that point when I was quite suspicious that things were not going to go in my favour.
You're going to appeal the decision?
I will appeal the decision, and I really need to think about the grounds that I appeal this decision on. I've got a lot of support around me. A lot of people are supporting me. This is a really, really important issue. It's a massively important issue, and I believe that I'm right, and I believe that I am 100% right, and I also believe that the adjudicator back in October 2021, I also believe that he was all right, because obviously he had said that he wasn't satisfied because Transport for London didn't provide evidence. And this is the whole issue, is that I want the evidence to be heard in court.
I sat in the back of that courtroom. There was Howard Cox there, as you saw in the picture. Susan Hall was there also, members of the press and other supporters of Noel. And we all sat there and listened. And Noel presented a very compelling case and proved very, very significantly and solidly that the signs are unlawful. And he could prove the signs were unlawful. And he could quote case precedents as to why this evidence needed to be heard. But you got to a point where it became quite apparent that they wanted to try and sweep it under the carpet because of a technicality. Now, the whole thing was Noel filed what's called a Section 8 declaration. And remember what he said in the video, it's a private matter, a private law matter. There's a very distinct difference between public law and private law. At the end of the day, TfL owe him money, so it is a private matter. But where all of this went a little bit Pete Tong is the fact that if they found in Noel's favour, what would then happen? There would be a massive impact or massive complication for TfL in that more than likely the scheme would have to be frozen, stopped. They quoted air quality, which is bollocks, because people have gone down the undergrounds and they've tested the air quality. I've done plenty of shows on this in the past and talked about air quality, and we can see it's nonsensical, all of it. And the other thing is the potential amount of refunds that TfL would have to give out to people could potentially cease their operation, or at least make it very difficult. So where they steered it, or where the judge steered it, was the fact that really this Section 8, and this was off the back of what the lawyer for TfL said, was misuse or misappropriation of the court's time, or abuse of the court's time. And Noel shouldn't have filed a Section 8. What he should have done was gone through a judicial review, and they said that under that process he could still claim for the money that he was owed. Now, there's a problem here. Number one, it was struck out, which, to be quite honest and on reflection, I think that was the whole idea of the whole affair. I do believe that decision was made before this hearing ever commenced. That's just my feeling on it. And the problem with judicial reviews is the amount of money they cost. And I want to show you something here, which is very important. And this is a little bit on judicial reviews. Let's make the screen bigger. So a judicial review in the UK involves several fees and costs, including court fees for applying for permission, £154, the final hearing fee, £770, along with substantial legal fees for solicitors and barristers, which can amount to tens of thousands. Now, this is where it gets you, tens of thousands. So in other words, justice for a normal working class individual in Britain is non-existent. We'll come to that in a minute. You should also be prepared to pay the other side's legal costs if you lose. Now, costs today were granted against Noel. So, you know, that's a complication of all this, as this is a general rule unless the court orders otherwise. If you look at court fees down here, it's how you start the thing. Initial application 154, reconsideration fee 385, final hearing 770, and then you've got legal fees on top of that, solicitors and barristers, experts, opponents' legal costs, cost protection. So all of these things, it just adds. So in the end, you get to a point where effectively they're declaring warfare, or lawfare rather, on an individual. And it's literally a David and Goliath situation. As I've said in previous videos, you know, this has taken a heavy toll on Noel, both business-wise and mentally. It's really been quite horrific, the ordeal that TfL have put him through. But at the end of the day, he's going to appeal. It's just a case of how, take the appropriate advice, and where do we go now? Now, this is a copy of the little interview that I did with him at the end for, you know, a slightly different perspective. Right, we're outside the Royal Courts with Noel. We've just come out of the hearing. As you know, all of you that have followed it for all of this time, I think the best thing to do is find out from Noel exactly what happened. So shoot, my friend.
What went on? With a very quick analogy, to sum things up, the working class just simply cannot get access to justice. You know, we're at the Royal Courts of Justice. Transport for London have basically argued that if the declaration is granted, it will cause them such significant problems in terms of millions in refunds of auto pay charges. And the judge today was just not willing for this to go to a hearing, to a trial, so that the evidence can be heard. I'm absolutely matter of fact regarding the evidence. Yeah, I'm abundantly clear with the evidence. These signs do not give drivers the correct information. We had an adjudicator's decision where he wasn't satisfied that the low emission zone signs were lawful or authorised back in 2021. Transport for London, what did they do? Continue charging motorists.
That's right.
They've continued to charge motorists. So today, I need to go back to the drawing board. Today was obviously a massive disappointment. I've had a lot of support. Loads of people have been getting behind me. But, you know, this is, for me now, got to go back to the drawing board, think about where I go from here. And I kind of knew that this was going to happen today when I saw the submissions that were submitted to the court, where basically they had stated that this was going to affect millions of people. And the judge was just not willing for that evidence to be heard.
Yeah, I mean, the impression I got, they tried to get a bit technical with you, being a litigant in person, and send it down a judicial review route instead of...
Exactly. I mean, this has just been overcomplicated. It's a simple question. Do these signs meet the legal requirements, yes or no? It's just a simple question. And you would think that that's very simple, but this has been overcomplicated. It's been batted all around the place. I've had a lot of... what would be the word here? A lot of bullying, a lot of institutional bullying. I am a litigant in person, I'm representing myself, and a lot of legal jargon was thrown at me today regarding court procedure rules and administration and so many different things. You know, let's just keep it really basic. The rule of law states that that law should be easy and accessible for everybody. Well, I learned today that that's not correct.
Absolutely not. Speaking as a taxi driver, every time I go to Heathrow Airport, I see that sign, ULEZ, and it tells you nothing else.
It's just an acronym, isn't it?
Sums up everything you want to know about this case. It's wrong.
It is wrong, but what they're arguing is that the Department for Transport has given them all of this authorisation to do this and to do that, but it doesn't quite work that way, and it took me a lot of mapping this together. I think currently at the moment I'm up to something like about 1,400 hours that I have spent on this, and this has come at a significant cost to me, to my business, and it's not been easy. You know, there's a lot of stress that's been involved. You know, the build up to the court case, the last week or so, you don't sleep right. I'm going into an environment that is completely unfamiliar territory to me.
Absolutely. Well, Noel, I wish you all the best. As you know, everyone on the channel wishes you all the best, as you're fully aware, and keep us posted. Thank you very much.
Take care.
There you go, from a slightly different perspective and a bit of the human factor as well. But one thing is very clear for normal, everyday working class people, there is no access to justice in this country. And what I saw with my own eyes today was a British judge in a British court protecting the British system with British rules. That is exactly what I saw. There's a very interesting comment here. Nigel Bontoff, the English Constitution Party, the only people talking about a digital Bill of Rights. Funnily enough, there's been a little bit of discussion in the background when I got home regarding some of the legalities of what went on. And I have forwarded that advice to Noel and see if there's any running with it. But one of the very interesting points was, if we found in your favour, Mr. Willcox, then TfL could be screwed over, finished, kaput, bankrupt. Years ago, a lot of years ago, there was a case heard by Lord Denning, I think it was, where somebody wanted a council to do something. And it was found that if the council did this particular thing, they'd be bankrupt, kaput, gone. And Lord Denning turned round and said, I think it was words to the effect of, let the heavens open. It's a very famous saying, actually. And what he meant by that was, not my problem. My job is to interpret and uphold the law. What happens as a consequence of me doing my job, that's not my problem. That's your problem. Tough, basically. And that approach that Lord Denning took on this case all these many years ago was not taken here. And that's quite obvious. Anyway, let's have a look at what people have got to say about this. Before I do, can I please ask you to hit the like button? I appreciate it very much. Good to see everybody. And please subscribe to the channel too. That would help very much. Okay, so we got Mark Clay. Hello, Andy. Hello to you. Good to see you. Oh, and by the way, share me on your social media as well. That helps the channel also. Esther. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands by it now deserves love. Absolutely. You know, I've followed this through from pretty much the very beginning. I said to, I think it was Howard today, that I remember seeing Noel for the first time in a newspaper article with the original thing where his company got done for 11,000 quid. I did a video on it, and then Noel contacted me, thanking me for covering it, and I've been following it ever since. So I know, and I get a feel for how long this has been going on for. It really has been going on for a long time. Blue Pony 2006, does the court look like? No, it doesn't actually. Particularly not in the inside. It's one of those really big, large, medieval type old buildings that you can imagine from old England, and it is absolutely ginormous. Well, inside actually. OAP 66, hi Andy. We all hope Noel gets a good result. He'll keep going. I know he'll keep going because he's come too far to let this kind of stop him, and the amount of support he's got from a lot of quarters. You know, I met some quite good people today who are all in his corner, and it's wonderful. So all the way you got the support. Sheila Miller, hi Andy, hello to you, good to see you. Thank you for joining this evening. This was a little bit of an impromptu one, to be quite honest. Quake, hi Andy, have you seen the stuff about digital IDs? I'm totally against it. Yes, I have. This is an idea first purported by Tony Blair, I think, many years ago, and it rears its head every now and again, but there's more noise being made this time than I've heard previously. And what people who turn around and say, I don't have a problem with an ID card, have to remember something. As soon as you give the state that much power, they can take away all of yours, just like that. So think very carefully. Don't have it. Don't accept it. Haven't been in a mosque, so I don't know. Which mosques have you been in and what they like inside, Scotty Harrison says. Fair point. I wonder if you get an answer to that. Ewan Cummia, the courts are rigged. I think the outcome depends very much on the effect. It's what I saw today was the fact that you had a British company, Transport for London, and I will tell you now, it's protected by the British government, being taken to court by one working class man, a scaffolder for crying out loud, who went in as a litigant in person. He was overwhelmed with legalese, for want of a better word, and just about everything else that could be thrown at him. A technicality was found to get the whole thing struck out. And he was even refused an appeal. He said in the court there and then, I want to appeal. And the judge would not have his reasons. So they wanted to force it down this judicial review route, which is tremendously and overwhelmingly expensive. And at the end of the day, one thing we must not lose sight of here, it's a private matter. They owe him money. Blue Pony 2006. Don't know, had thoughts that the court he went to looked like a mosque, but maybe more resemblance to it. Probably, yeah. A bit of a big church. I think that's probably a fair assessment, actually. Like a cathedral type thing. The inside, at least, it was ginormous. Is this left-wing justice a con? Quite possibly, OAP 66. I mean, you look what happened with the Epping Hotel, and the background of the judge in that case. I'm not casting any aspersions, of course I'm not, because I don't know, but it does make you wonder. BBR, these signers are not lawful. It seems that the legal system don't want to fall on the legal side due to the amount of money TfL would have to pay out. That is it exactly. That is it exactly. You're talking probably billions. And at the end of the day, the signs are unlawful. They don't tell you anything. They do not tell you anything that they're supposed to by law. Scotty Harrison, does that mean Noel has to pay TfL court costs? Did he lose? I would say, I would call it, with a positive spin, I would call it a temporary setback. But this particular stage, yes, he did, because his claim was struck out for the reasons I've already said. TfL, the lawyer for TfL, submitted costs which Noel has to pay TfL, and I don't know what's going to happen there, so I'm not going to comment, but I'm assuming there'll be some kind of appeal or something like that. There was a bit of underhanded trickery going on there as well, but we'll see. The Royal Courts of Justice is a farce. Do you mean farce? And yeah, T and E are fairly near each other, aren't they? Leave my rights alone. Digital ID will be brought in by reform. I think everyone wants to bring it in. Our freedoms, our very liberty could be at risk if those are brought in. The tweet that I put was, fuck off. I've got a passport, I've got a driving license, and I've got a birth certificate. What more do I need? The law is now biased, and once going along with that, our legal system is not fit for purpose, BBR. The problem is we have constitutional right or constitutional rights, and they're being subverted by layers of stuff being put over the top of them. And it's only when you start uncovering all of this and learning what your real rights actually are, then people will start, winning. King Kong 58. The establishment will never accept our rights, even if it's law, because if they do, it'll be their downfall. This is the thing. And the other thing I discovered today is that judges are supposed to be held to account for the way they conduct themselves in these cases. And if they do something wrong or out of turn, then they could be done too. That's a very interesting turn of events, I tell you. How would a Royal Courts of Justice balance efficiency reforms with the timeless need for open justice and public trust? Pokey dude, that's above my pay grade. I really couldn't answer that, but that's a very good point, definitely. Who's making these rules? Leave my rights alone. Well, the British have rules, the English have rights, and unfortunately these British rules are being interpreted in a way to serve them. You know, part of the transcript for one of the previous adjudication decisions was the fact that if I can't remember the exact wording, but it was I can't in good conscience or can't bring myself to the point I can declare these signs lawful. In other words, it was like a semi non-committal answer. And I feel that what they did today was interpret that in a different way and use that as part of the whole reasoning, along with the fact it could bankrupt TfL, to strike the whole thing out. That's the way it came across to me today. But there you go. And yes, they are protected because at the end of the day, if you get a situation where a company owes you money, you can apply to have that company struck. That's been tried and it didn't work. That's where you find out that TfL are protected. Please name Noel's GoFundMe site. Let's get on this. Just a cup of coffee, £3, just help Noel BBR. I will leave a link to it in the description if it's still running. But the problem is when you get into judicial reviews and all that sort of thing, you're talking thousands, absolute thousands. At the end, Andy, it's all about money, power, and ultimately control. And who controls the controlled? You've got it. I don't get notifications for your channel or Paz's now, Andy, Mick says. Have you got the bell pushed? Let me know, Mick. Craig Mawson, Andy, I have a question. What happened to TfL in New Year's? Sadiq Khan loses his seat at the next general election. What will happen to TfL and you, Les? Sadiq Khan loses his seat then. I assume you mean the next mayoral election, because he's not an MP, is he? For now, well, TfL would still be there because they're unrelated. But as for you, Les, who knows? It would depend on the political orientation of whoever replaces him, I suppose. We'll have to see with that one. Anyway, folks, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for your support for Noel and watching the videos earlier today. It's a bloody long day. I think it's about 5:30 I left my place this morning. So rather put, but it's a shame it didn't work out better. Anyway, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you've got social media accounts, give me a follow, share this, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Toodaloo.